The Gulf of Oman, at the extreme east of the Arabian Peninsula. It's 4 in the morning. I'm dreaming of Oman. In my dream, I see forms taking shape in the night. I sit and patiently wait for the stones to come to life. I see the shadowy shapes start to make their way across the sand, slowly. This turtle is once again leaving the beach where she was born. She'll be back in 3 or 4 years to repeat the same ritual that's been held here since the dawn of time. In the meantime, she will have navigated oceans that even the greatest explorers would find daunting. The slow determination of this creature from the depths of time fills me with respect. And I thank the wind and the sea for the gift of this dream, a prelude to my time in Oman. I'd fancied I was lulled to sleep by the waves of the Arabian Sea, but it's the sweet murmur of a stream that wakes me, in the middle of the Oman desert. I'm starting my journey in a barren land, many days' walk from the coast. But all I can think of is getting back to the ocean I saw in my dream. Down beneath my feet lies this country's reserves of wealth. Not the gold of fairy tales that made princes set to sea, but modern gold, the gold of the desert, black gold. My wanderings through this majestic landscape take me to abandoned villages where the simple rerouting of a stream has been enough to move the entire population further down its banks. Sometimes, tiny villages of just a few dozen inhabitants appear out of nowhere among the rocks. Where you or I might see nothing but a hostile, desolate land, the people of the Oman Desert have been able to build a life. The desert trails known to the caravans and traders are haunted by the memories of Bedouins and bandits, of myths and legends, and the sunsets of 1001 nights. The ancient cities like Sinau or Ibra seem to have been there forever, and they're still astonishingly vibrant. It's a big contrast to the desert I've just crossed. Calm gives way to commotion, silence to cacophony, and scarcity to abundance. It's all making my head spin. It's a bit like a jigsaw puzzle. There's a picture here, but right now I can't piece it all together yet. I'm doing my best just to drink it all in. The sounds, the smells, the proud faces, the hands that tell so many stories. The woman-only market of Ibra catches my eye. But I'm even more intrigued by this fish market. The sheer variety of fresh fish on these busy stalls makes it easy to forget we're in the middle of the desert, 250 kilometers from the sea. If the sea can make it this far inland, it must play a fundamental role in both the history and the daily life of Oman. So I decide to keep on heading for the coast. To get there, I first have to cross the ocean of red and honey-colored dunes that stretches as far as the eye can see. The traveler in me is forever divided between my need to get away from civilization and my gregarious instinct to seek companionship. So I'm happy to see these camels wandering free, for they mean there's company near.
People have been living here for many generations. They subsist on breeding and milking their goats, and some of them also sell dates, but there's no other real work. They belong here, though, and it's been the case for a long time. Bedouin children know how to mount and ride a dromedary from as young as 5 years old. They very rarely used to sell these animals. They kept them to ride as beasts of burden and for their milk or meat. But things have changed. Now I see people selling them off at the market. We'd never do that, though. You know, Bedouins never used to go out to the coast, but recently some have been going to work there. They're still Bedouins, but they fish too. Fishermen and shepherds. They do both. I don't like the city. When you're born a Bedouin, the desert is your life. People from town can't handle the Bedouin life, but it's what we like.
Behind the down-to-earth exterior of this man of the dunes, the mysterious link between the nomads and nature lives on. The Bedouins commune with the wind, the stars and the earth beneath their feet. They live in a harmony with the elements that defies both time and the modern world. The notion of borders, so dear to us, has no place in their minds. The freedom lost by our hurried world is their way of life. And even if the Bedouins get around less than they did, in their heads they're always ready to strike camp. The desert sands at last give way to the Arabian Sea, and I meet my first Bedouin fishermen scattered along the coast.
I started out when I was a child, in the 70s, and I think I've done every kind of fishing there is. It was the old folks and my neighbors in the village who taught me. Ours is a small community, and I started out helping them. We just had little boats back then, before we got motorboats. We used to cast our nets from little boats like this one, and we check several times a day if there are any fish. But it's different fishing with bigger boats. You just throw your nets in the morning and bring them in at night, or the other way around. We've always lived here, more or less the same place. The houses all used to be made of wood, and we used to move them along the beach. I remember we used to let the fish dry in the sun for 2 or 3 days before we took it to market. We didn't even have cars back then. It was all animals.
And here I am in Sur, a coastal town in the northeast of the Sultanate of Oman, almost 3 hours' drive from the capital, Muscat. Sur has always looked towards the sea rather than back at the sand dunes. For beyond the horizon it faces lies India, far enough away to be the stuff of dreams, yet near enough for generations of seafarers from either side to build strong links between the two lands. Horses, incense, spices, and many other long-valued commodities have for over 2,000 years made Oman a hub of trade in the region. And all thanks to those unlikely wooden boats known as Dhows, to which the city owes its fame and its prosperity. Dhow is the generic term for the Arabian boats that once had a mast and a triangular sail, and that are still built from wood in the traditional manner. They've been sailing the seas between India and the Arabian Peninsula for so long now that they've been home to the famous pearl fishers of Oman, to merchants with their cargoes of incense and silks, to the ever-present pirates of the Gulf, and these days, to the hordes of tourists and wealthy yachtsmen. This time, the Arabian Sea is no dream, and I fall asleep to the sound of its waters. Sur is an ancient city with a noble seafaring past, and it's still a busy port. And yet, walking around its narrow streets, I find no sign of its former glories. There's no architectural trace of the old town, not even really a city center. There are just the modest streets lined with modern houses. It's as if Sur wanted to leave no trace of its past. I find none of the usual landmarks I'm used to when exploring a historical city. So I just go with the flow and wander the streets at whim. And that's how I end up at a school that seems very quiet for the time of day.
Both boys and girls are all in the same class here. Usually they go to separate schools, but when it comes to exams, they all come to the same place, but stay on different sides.
Oil money and the word of the Sultan have made education a top priority. These students are sitting their final school exams, and here in this school, just as everywhere in the Sultanate, it's a very serious moment for them. As I keep on exploring, I begin to notice that so strong is the Sultan's presence here that it has shaped the face of his cities. If town planning in Oman gives an impression of uniformity, that's because the houses are all more or less modeled on the old fortifications. And those forts are very highly valued here. A recent restoration program has brought them strangely up to date. The simplicity of these structures with their towers, their surrounding walls, and their battlements finds an echo in the city's houses. Over the fort flies the national flag with its khanjar, the traditional dagger, and two crossed swords. So what do these weapons signify on the flag, and where are they made?
I was born here, and I remember my father would bring me to the workshop when I was just a baby. I used to watch him work. But he's not very well now, so I've taken over and I run the workshop now.
Every dagger that comes out of this workshop is unique, custom made to feature its future owner's chosen motifs.
This kind of dagger has been a part of Arab culture for a very long time. All Arabs used to carry daggers, but they took different forms. For instance, a Yemeni dagger is big and straight, while other ones are curved. It all depends where they're made. In Saudi Arabia, they have big, very curved daggers. In Syria, they're different again. It depends on the country. The Omani dagger has a very recognizable form.
I admire this solid silver piece that's worthy of a jeweler. I watch a really valuable object take shape halfway between jewelry and embroidery.
We call the cane el-bakur. Like the dagger, it's an accessory you carry to look distinguished on less important occasions than ones you'd wear the dagger for.
Like the khanjar, this cane is carried by Omanis to look elegant and respectable, in the same way Westerners would wear a tie. It calls to my mind the Bedouin I met in the desert, who used his stick for emphasis.
Older people use it as a walking stick, too. When you go to a funeral, for example, you don't wear a dagger, you just take your cane. Of course, every Omani would like to have his own dagger rather than borrow one or rent it, but not everyone can afford one. It's a valuable thing, you know, something you leave to your children.
Our Western society, with its love of materialism, tends paradoxically to forget the true value of objects. Here, when you pass down a dagger, you're handing on a part of your cultural heritage. I understand now why it's on the flag, and I think back to the start of my journey and to the market at Sinau. I remember the men with their dagger in their belt and a cane in their hand. resume my exploration of the streets and come across a particularly lively spot, where a few chairs and a table are enough to create a gambling den. In Islamic countries, and indeed in the whole of Arab culture, men and women have clearly defined roles, especially when it comes to public life. Schools, for example, start off mixed, but by the age of 8, boys and girls are split into different establishments. You see more men out in the streets, but the women, although they might be hidden away, are omnipresent in Arab society. There are even places like the amazing market at Ibra that I came across out in the desert that are just for them. I'll never forget the vibrant atmosphere, those stalls crammed with all the fabrics and all the makeup accessories for their eyes and their hands. And I remember how the men had to hang back outside the market and let the women haggle and deal among themselves. But kindness, respect, and genuine curiosity are generally enough to dissolve barriers and open the doors of many sanctuaries. So some women are happy to offer a glimpse of their private life and invite me to discover the art of four-handed embroidery.
I started weaving when I was 15 or 20. I learned from the older women, from my mother and my aunts. It takes 5 or 10 days to make a whole dress, but you can do it in 3 if you don't do anything else.
I'm impressed by the ease and simplicity with which they work. A suri made with such care and attention is surely the equal of anything by the great houses of haute couture.
These dresses originated in Kuwait and were always known as the Kuwaiti style, but now we make them in Sur. The fabric still comes from Kuwait, though. The embroidered motifs are from Sur, but then the Indian dressmakers started copying them and producing machine-made dresses. But originally, they were handmade product by the women here.
The women invite each other around and get together in groups to share domestic chores. I leave the seamstresses to finish their dress and join some other women in the next room who are preparing for a wedding.
We do henna tattoos for different occasions, usually for weddings or for going to parties. The designs have no particular significance. It depends on who's doing them. Sometimes, for a bride, for example, they can go right up the arm, while for a young girl, they're just on the back of the hand. Whatever you want, really. These henna designs are a part of our culture, so young girls learn to do them very early on. But they also have to wear the traditional robe, the suri. Girls absolutely have to know all that.
The henna dries in the air and will fall off by itself after a few minutes, leaving behind on the skin delicate orangey-brown arabesques. This beautiful day, full of discovery and encounters, winds up on Sur's main beach, where every evening as the sun sets over the sea, the all-important football game kicks off. And the final whistle blows when the cry of the muezzin rings out. Ever since I reached the coast, I've been intrigued by these wooden dhows. The boatyard I can see from my high window looks like the place to learn how they're built.
I've been working here in the yard for 25 years, and my father worked here before me. The business is handed down. I learned everything from him. When I was just a child, he taught me how to hold the tools, the names of the different parts of the boats, how to shape the prow, how to choose the planks. He taught me all that, bit by bit. There used to be 8 yards here, but over the last 15 years they've all closed, one after the other, mainly because the children didn't take over the family business. I decided to carry on for my father. The Dhows have a very long history. My father used to say that in his day, and even for his father and grandfather, Sur was famous for boat building. He told me he was just 13 years old when he went to Kuwait to learn his trade. We usually use wood from Malaysia, South Africa, or Myanmar to build these boats. But for the frame, we use another kind of wood. It comes from Oman, from the Al-Batina region. It takes 5 big lorry loads of wood and about 8 or 9 months to build a dhow. Between 20 and 40 men work on a boat like this one. It's all Indian workers now because the Omanis won't come in. They say they're sick. The fact is, they'd rather stay in the shade than come and work in the yard. They're work shy.
The traditional Dhow is so well loved that they're making miniature models of them in a corner of the workshop to meet the demand from both foreign and Omani visitors for a souvenir of these national treasures.
Believe me, I'm happy in my work. I love this job. It's in my blood. When I go away, I really miss the yard. I can't wait to get back here and get back to work. You know, my father never made blueprints. He never had a computer. He had the boat all there in his head. It's a very special thing with our family. This job's in our blood. We just can't let it go.
What may well save the craftsmanship of this, the last boatyard in Sur, is the yachting world's quest for authenticity. Because the majority of fishing boats these days are made of fiberglass and imported from Dubai. Traditional boat building techniques are handed down from generation to generation orally, and that makes this particular heritage a very fragile one. And yet all is not lost, because the power of the oral tradition remains strong in this part of the world. The word Quran means recitation, which gives a whole new dimension to the oral tradition. It was Muhammad's desire to unify the Arab world, and in the year 629, he brought the Muslim religion to Oman. The imams here are proud to have embraced the religion in the lifetime of the Prophet and teach the verses of the Quran to the local children with passion and fervor.
The Quran is the basis of Islam. Every Muslim must learn the Quran by heart to understand the religion and be able to pray. It is a guide for the whole of life, as well as the beyond. One verse of the Quran says, life is just a passing moment. Man's life is short, 60 or 70 years, then you die. Life is very short compared to the infinity beyond. We must learn the Quran because it guides us through this life, but it will be a great help in the afterlife.
إنسان 60 سنة 70 سنة في حي بعد في موت هذا حياة الدنيا قليل وحياة الآخرة لا انتهاء سبحان ربي العظيم سبحان ربي العظيم سبحان ربي العظيم سبحان ربي العظيم سمع الله لمن حمده
سمع الله لمن حمده
ربنا لك الحمد
ربنا لك الحمد
الله أكبر
الله أكبر
التحيات لله والصلوات والطيبات شيخ في مثال حياة الدنيا وفي
There's a metaphor that explains it all very well.
حياة الدنيا في روح نفر إنسان في روح بحر
If a man dips his finger into the sea and takes it out again, he'll see a drop of water on the end of his finger. That droplet is life, and all the rest, the sea, is what lies beyond.
ماء البحر كله هذا حياة الآخرة لا انتهاء.
I turn my gaze and my thoughts away from the sand and rocks and look towards the foaming sea. Tomorrow, if the winds blow fair, I'll be sailing off in a dhow. Tomorrow, I'll be taking to the sea, as once did the great sailor Ahmad Ibn Mâdjid, the inspiration for that no less famous character from the 1001 Nights, the hero of 7 fantastical voyages, Sinbad the Sailor. Tomorrow, I have an appointment with the crew who'll be taking me deep-sea fishing in the Gulf of Oman.
We usually set out at 5 in the afternoon and come back the next morning at 7 or 8 o'clock, sometimes earlier, depending on how far we've gone.
بين القرب والبعد إذا تبعدنا تأخرنا وإذا تقربنا جينا من بكر من عمري 10 سنوات.
I started with my father when I was 10 and, well, I'm still here.
وما زلت في البحر.
When a boat pulls out, the dream begins, and an adventure is underway. When they take to the sea, these men are joining a long line of great seafarers, of course, but also of modest fishermen, the workers of the deep, forever casting and hauling in their nets. When we cross paths with this tiny boat, our dhow stops for a moment, as tradition dictates, to say hello. Depending on the sea, it can take hours to reach your fishing spot. And despite the pitching and rolling, the crew tries to keep busy. If you stop a boat in open sea to say your prayers, they must be pretty important. At least that's what I'm thinking as I watch the captain bowing towards Mecca.
There are some Omani crews, but usually they're Indian. Omanis would rather work in the civil service or the private sector, or else they have their own boats. But I'm grateful to the government for bringing us this foreign help. On a big boat like this, I really need my 7 or 8-man crew.
Before you cast your nets, you always have to check under the hold if the fish are taking the hook. If not, you have to head further out and pass the time mending the nets. I've heard tell of the famous Omani sea shanties, and I've often wondered about them. I asked the captain if he ever sings while he works.
Singing will give you courage and rhythm. You work more quickly. When you stop singing, that's when you feel tired. You sing to keep your spirits up. I don't actually know why I sing. I used to hear my father singing, so I do like him. And yes, it's a tough job. There's storms, wind, rain, you get exhausted. And then, once you're home, you have to go and sell your fish, then get the boat ready again and mend your nets. Yes, it's tough, especially the nets.
The fishing's not going to be great today. These old salts know that you can never take the fish for granted. I'll leave them to their work. I'm moving on. From the desert sands to the cresting waves, by way of the stars that have always guided them, the Omanis, be they Bedouins or fishermen, are passionate about their land and humble. In their desire to make of the Sultanate an example for the whole Arabian Peninsula, they consciously combine modernity with respect for their past. A passing traveler could never grasp in just one visit all the cultural riches of this people. For like the sea, fascinating and mysterious, they will let you in, but on their own terms.